What's up, my friends, and welcome into today's episode of Forte Catholic. I'm so glad that you are here. Father Anthony joins me today as we have a conversation about a big life decision, something I've changed about myself that I think is positive, a big life decision, and something he's thinking about changing about himself that I think is a terrible decision. And then we talk about Mary, the saints, and the Gospels. So it all rounds out to be a pretty great show. If you enjoy it, please hit that subscribe button wherever you are watching or listening. It's the biggest thing you can do to help us out. We hope that you enjoy today's episode. What's up? And welcome to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Stroll. That is Father Anthony Scaramucci Sciarappa. What's up, buddy?
Oh, nothing much. Just wrapping up my day, getting ready for my day off, recording a podcast with my good friend, Taylor Heisenberg Schroll.
Heisenberg, what's up, man?
Good.
I mentioned that on last week's episode with Liv, and she had no idea who that was, and I just yelled, "I am the one who knocks," and she looked at me incredibly confused. You think that I'm in danger? I am the danger.
We need to get you the hat. You need that.
Yeah, exactly. It's stupid. Everybody's been telling me to get like a bigger brimmed hat because I just wear like baseball caps. And I get like the weird suntan during track season because like this top of my head doesn't get any sun at all. So they're like, dude, cover the rest of your face. And I was like, no, I like looking like a, you know what I look like? I look like the blood moon from a couple weeks ago. the sunburn just slowly creeping over my head. That's very funny.
That's nice.
For those that remember, you had this whole diatribe against the moon. So I would imagine a lot of people messaged you about the moon.
Some people
being taken away.
Did. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the moon being covered by the Earth for a while? It took me a long time to realize what was happening. I was like, how is this happening? Did the sun turn off? I was like, no, I'm in the way. I'm that fat.
No, I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it while it lasted. It's only a promise of things to come, kind of a threat. Of future destruction. So a good thing, but not the mission is not yet complete.
Yeah, totally understandable. So one other thing that has happened recently with you is that you let me know after, I think it was about last week's Mass, you were celebrating First Communion. First Communion Mass. Yeah. They're very exciting. I think I've mentioned First Communion Mass on the show recently because we just celebrated them at our parish too. I don't think I've told this story, but like I'm like, the typical dad where I let everybody go ahead of me in communion. And Maggie knows that she's been like, First Communion's coming soon. Her brother's already done it. She knew it was coming. She goes to Catholic school, so they do their formation there at the school. And so she had heard about it. And then we went to the First Communion celebration Mass. And being the normal dad, I let all of my family go out in front of me, and Maggie's right in front of me. So as I'm bowing down at this First Communion Mass, I look up and immediately I see her like getting Jesus in her hand, and I get up from my bow and immediately like slap her hand down, like, no, we're not doing First Communion today. Like I didn't like yell at her. I just got shit, and then I was like, I put her hands like this. She was like, what? And I was yes, it's First Communion. It's not yours. She's like, oh, okay, like she's totally innocent about the whole thing. But that was my experience of First Communion. But you sent me a message after a First Communion celebration at your parish, and it was a little different than I would imagine others have been. So what happened?
Yeah. So first of all, it's just a long day. I had 3 masses. I had a baptism between stuff, so my brain was a little fried. There's no air conditioning in my big fancy church, and it's just starting to get warm in Western PA. So my brain was fried. And then I did the First Communion Mass, and then the MC after Mass looks at me and says, do you realize that you distributed communion for 45 minutes straight?
Good night.
I was like, it felt like a long time, but I wasn't counting. So the deal was, go ahead.
The more I thought about this, the angrier I got. At first, it was silly because you were like, I just distributed communion for 45 minutes. I'm like, what? Why? How? And I'm like laughing,
And it's insane.
And then the longer I thought about it, I got angrier and angrier. So what do you think happened?
Yeah, so I mean, we've done this movement in the parish that we're using less extraordinary ministers for Holy Communion. We're only using what we need, and normally,
We're
four
using
for
mediocre ministers like you.
yeah, exactly. So normally we have four people distributing communion, and it works just fine. It doesn't take terribly long. We have nice music. It's fine, no big deal. But for this mass, apparently we just didn't schedule anybody. I didn't realize it because I was just on the autopilot priest mode, and our church, which seats about like 800 people. It was packed. And going down the row was the first communicant all the way down to the center of the church. So the first part just took a while because each individual first communicant would come up to the altar, kneel down, and receive the Eucharist, which was nice. We had a photographer and all that stuff. And that was fine. But then, the 700 other people wanted to receive communion. And I get down there and I realize I'm the only one here. And I don't know what to do because people are already coming up in line. So I just start like boom, boom, boom. And I was going as fast as I can without being irreverent. I really was. And people were doing this thing where they were hesitating whether or not to no, come on, keep moving. I would wave my hand no, I want you next to each other. Keep going. Boom, 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 boom. And literally my shoulder was sore. I was I was getting annoyed by little things like sometimes people will stay really far away from you for communion. You have to stretch and it was just driving me crazy. No, come up. I went bam, 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 bam. And the whole thing took 45 minutes. Mass was an hour and a half long. And half of that was just straight up giving people communion. I don't know why. We didn't have anybody scheduled.
So at first I was mad on your behalf. The fact that you got put in that situation, I was pretty frustrated. Yeah. But then I was got mad as the layperson. Are you serious? Are you kidding me that I have to sit through 45 minutes of communion while one person gives it to everyone? It's infuriating.
It's ridiculous. It was definitely an oversight. And the other person who suffered was our organist for the day was Kevin. So Kevin did not plan.
I didn't even
45
think about
minutes.
that.
He did not plan 45 minutes.
His fingers fell off. God.
He played the organ straight 45 minutes.
So there is something that I have learned recently about myself that that I have changed about myself that was a pretty recent change. So one of the few good traits about me is that I am a jack of all trades. I am decent at a lot of different things. And just because I've worked in the church and the whole joke is you get a job as a youth minister, as a DRE, or as the marketing guy. And then the last thing in everybody's job descriptions is and other duties as assigned. And that's all you end up doing is the other duties as assigned. So I have done other duties as assigned, my whole career working in the church. So I've done a little bit of everything. So the joke we're talking about Mass, but it's broader than that. But at Mass, I can do literally everything except for be the priest. I can do the music. I can be a lector. I'm a trained DM. I'm a trained trained lector. I can be a greeter. I can be I've done all of those jobs relatively successfully. Even to the point where the joke is that I can't do what the priest does. I can't say Mass. But I think I have said multiple times on this show that I have been the next person in charge, either the music director or the youth minister or the campus minister or where the priest doesn't show up. So I got trained in how to lead a liturgy of the word led by a layperson. So literally, even if you don't show up, I can do something near to what you were going to do. I just can't do the second half.
You can at least give people Jesus. You can't make him, but you can give him away.
Yeah, we always kept extra. So literally, I could do everything at Mass if needed, if needed be, right? But then even in my normal life, I have worked in production my whole life, live audio, recorded audio, all this stuff, to where I always got put in these weird situations where, and I've talked about it on the show, I go to the church, the music's terrible. I could fix that, but it's not my place, right? Yeah. Or I could go, something in the production isn't going well at an event that I'm at, but it's not really my place. Because what has happened before, both working in the church and in places where there's varying degrees of, is this my place? Like, obviously there's like my house
Yeah.
and then my church and then like a church that I work at. Like I have a lot of ownership over the events happening there. But what if I'm a volunteer? What if it starts getting a little bit more into gray area? What if I'm a volunteer? What if I used to work there and I know everything how to fix it, but it's not really, all these things, right?
Yeah.
And because people had gotten offended early in my career, when I was like young 20s, they were like, that's not your role. That's my job. I'm like, well, like it wasn't getting done. So it needed to get done, and I know how to do it. So I used to 15 years ago, when I was bright, bushy-eyed, had a bunch of hair and a lot of hope for the church and a lot of hope for the future back in those days. Like I would do things that needed to get done because I have the skill set and, we're the body of Christ. Let's all do this together. And what did people do? They were like, that's my job. You should have stepped in. Now you stepped on my toes. Wah, wah, wah. And so what did I do? I stopped. Right. So for the last decade, I have suffered through stuff like what you and the entire church suffered through of I'm a trained DM, but this isn't my church. I mean, I know Father Anthony, but it's not my parish. And I'm a trained DM in another diocese. So I wouldn't have done anything for forever. But I got so mad at the situation that I was like, I'm going to fly there right now and come help you. It's I have the ability to help, and this is a clear situation where help is needed. Someone needed no one's scheduled help or whatever, but even you were stressed out enough that you didn't ask for help. Like you're a crazy person. So it's like just being able to step up, be like, it's like in that situation, like obviously you want to be respectful of the person in charge, like the priest. It's like, hey, do you want me to help EM? And leave it up to you, but essentially I approach. My guess is you would have said yes. We literally could have cut it down from 45 to 22 and a half minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the funny thing was, we had these two ladies who were helping. So one of the things that our DRE, basically, she got COVID that week, so she wasn't around, and she's very organized and all that such. But she'd have two people to volunteer to help, basically usher the kids and everything. And I made a mental note to I'll ask them to EM for me. Because I know that they probably can do it and everything. But when I went down to give out communion and talk to them, they I don't know where they went. They disappeared somewhere. They were either helping ush other people or whatever. And so I talked to my parochial vicar. First of all, you could have helped me. If I'd sent you a text message at the beginning of Mass, you could have flown from Texas to Pittsburgh and in time to cut 20 minutes off that Mass. But I was talking to the other parochial vicar about it, and he goes, hey, you can just in situations like that, just go to the microphone and ask if anyone's a trained EM.
Right.
I was like, oh yeah,
100%.
I didn't even think about it.
There's a lot of blame to go around here. I think there, not blame as in it's your fault, but okay, the planning lady got sick. Obviously not her fault, but maybe that's why it didn't happen. You're stressed out. You're a crazy person. You didn't ask for help. I don't understand why you didn't ask for help. So,
it just didn't cross my mind.
Second of all, if you have, how many people do you think were in that Mass? You said 1,500?
No. It's about 800 people in the church.
Okay.
At least 600, at least.
Okay. 14 of them have EM'd recently. You know what I mean? It would have been totally taken care of if they would have stepped up and done what I'm talking about, what they can control, right? So obviously that lady couldn't control anything. But the other ladies that were helping, they could have controlled it. You could have controlled it. Mm-hmm. The lay people in the parish could have controlled it, right? So it's what I the change that I have made is the things that I know how to do and can kind of control. I'm just going to start doing them again. I'm to the point where I don't care about stepping on people's toes anymore. I don't.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole ask for forgiveness instead of permission thing. Mm-hmm. I was at. People know that I worked for Ablaze Ministries for 5 years. That's why they were a huge help in building up my career and all this stuff, right? But I left 2 years ago, and it's been a little awkward ever since I left, right? So I finally went back to their benefit dinner, right? Because I'm still friends with so many people there, and the community, all this stuff. It was just kind of weird for me to go because it was COVID, and nobody knew that I left working there, because we all left for 2 years, and so I go to the benefit dinner, and because one of our mutual friends, Chris, invited me, and I went, and I had a wonderful evening. Well, I used to run the production for big events like that, so there's a few hundred people in there, And our good friend and co-host Allison Sullivan was the primary speaker for the evening. Cool. And we know two things about Allison. She's a tremendous speaker, and she has zero idea how a production happens. So she gets off of her, she finishes her talk, and of course she has her stand there because she reads off her notes for everything, right? And she calls on the worship leader to come. She calls him by the wrong name. Freaking hilarious. She's like, and now Nick will come lead us in worship. And Nick was the like guy who was running the evening. Like he's the development director, and he's a friend of mine. No, and he freaked out. He's like, I don't know how to play music.
He gets like a kazoo and goes up there.
Be thou my peace. But no, like the real worship leader, who's a buddy of mine, comes up. I called him Nick the rest of the evening. It was great. I love making fun of my friends. Allison, Nick, and not Nick.
Yeah.
But so Allison leaves the stand like in the middle of the thing, and there's a projector behind her. So we're about to do worship, and there's going to be words on the screen, and there's a big stand in the way. Not really her fault, but like I was like, who's running the production here? And I looked around at all my former, people, and I'm like, nobody's moving. And we're about to start prayer, and nobody can see the words. Yeah. So it's my former employer, but it's also the mistake of one of my current workmates in Allison.
Yeah.
So I just walk up, and I grab the stand, and I move it down, which I would have never have done.
Yeah.
And like just a few months ago, because I was like, I don't want to step on people's toes. Like, this is awkward. It's my former employer. Like, but like, it needed to get done. Nobody was doing it. I'm stepping up. So that's where I am now. Of like, I'm done. I'm done worrying about stepping on people's toes. I just look both ways. It's like crossing the street as a kid. I look both ways. If nobody's going up to help, I'm going to go help if it's something that I know how to do. And like, I've been doing it long enough that I can do it without being a huge distraction, like, other than like being a person walking up there and doing it. It's like, it's better than the distraction that was already there, so.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Yeah. Cause I mean, a lot of times everyone's thinking the same thing, and this will happen a lot in liturgies. I've learned to do this, even if I'm not like the main celebrant or the MC or whatever. If you see something wrong, just go fix it. Otherwise, because you got usually like 10 people who are thinking the same thing, and nobody wants to step on anyone's toes. What do I do or whatever? Right. And if you just calmly, professionally go fix a thing, everyone's actually usually grateful for it.
Right.
Maybe not the person whose job it was, but who cares? They failed, and they deserve to be shamed and fired. So you fixed it, and everyone else is happy. Yeah.
Sup, Nick?
So I think it's good. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, and like, but even like the culture of stepping up to help is actually a big part of like the EM's culture and or training at my parish. What happened at your church would have never happened at my church. Now, it's well documented that my church has had its own share of problems over the last few years. Yeah. It's not saying, oh, we're better than you. It's just, I feel like this part should be the culture everywhere, because it happens inevitably every week. Where like, maybe not no EMs, but like, 3 or 4 are supposed to be scheduled. Let's say 4 are supposed to be scheduled and 3 show up.
Yeah.
So what does everybody do? Everybody that's an EM, peace be with you, peace be with you, peace be with you, and immediately looks and sees if anybody else is going up. And sometimes like 2 people even be going up, the person behind them will see that the other person's already there, and they'll go back to their pew, right? It's one of those things like, we're all in reserves. Like, we're good. We got this, But like, I think what you're saying is right. That like everybody's thinking this. It's super awkward. But like, I started doing it with like the audio at my church. It's not my job anymore. I used to be responsible for it, but like, I'm good at it. And especially like we were doing it was Ash Wednesday. This is a long time ago now, but I've done it multiple times. But Ash Wednesday is probably the biggest one. Because it was like, we made a huge push to invite people who aren't parishioners to our church. Mm-hmm. And we got a lot of people that do not come to our church to come Ash Wednesday. It was like a huge parish-wide evangelization thing. Like, y'all come on, and Father did a great job of like doing a non-shameful, like, hey, welcome, we're glad you're here. We hope that you can stick around for Lent. Like, it was a non-shame-filled way of inviting people into the life of the church,
Cool.
And, but we couldn't hear him. because it was like standing room only. There's so many people there. We're, so what? I go upstairs and like the person responsible for it was there and not fixing it. So I go upstairs and I turn him up. And like the musicians are wondering if I'm messing with them. I don't care. Father needed to be louder. Nobody could hear him. I just did it. And like, if people want to be frustrated, that's fine. But you know what they'll do next time? They'll fix it so I don't have to. Exactly. So good. I don't know, man. It's a change that has happened in me, and I felt it of just the like, it's not that I don't care about people's feelings, but I think I've worked with a lot of people who are young in ministry. So for a long time, I had to like soften myself so as to not step on people's toes because they were new and learning. But it's like, when it's parish wide and it's somebody's job, it's like, man, come on. Like I'm willing to help. Yeah. And it's not like a spiteful thing of like, I'm going to show you. No, I have the skills. No. It needs to get done. Nobody's doing it. I'm going to do it. And I'll deal with the consequences later.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So sorry you had to deal with that. I understand that there were extenuating circumstances, but I hope you've learned your lesson as well. I hope that that my lesson in life to step up and do the thing that's out of the ordinary will be you going, can I have help, please? Because that's
I do
ridiculous.
Need to get better at that. I'll just do it myself.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Exactly. A lot of times that's the attitude of myself and other priests, because like, no, I'm just gonna do it. Yeah. No, it's good to ask for help.
I think even the trads would agree with me at this point. They're like, oh, there shouldn't be lay Eucharistic ministers. I'm like, well, it's either that or sit through 45 minutes of extra mass where you stare at nothing happening. So choose wisely. Which way, modern man?
Exactly.
All right, don't go anywhere. Whenever we come back, Father Anthony's trying to make a huge life change in his life, and I'm not on board. Don't go anywhere. Nice. If you ever wanted to travel the world, if you ever wanted to see the holy sites in the world, the Holy Land, Rome, anywhere in Europe seems to be much cooler than here in America when it comes to pilgrimage sites. There are so many different options. Like for me, walking the Camino would be a huge one. Trying to go to Rome and to the Holy Land and eventually the Camino. All of those trips. I know a lot of people like France. A lot of people like saying they're going on pilgrimage and just going to drink in Ireland or something, like our good friend Liv Harrison. But if you've ever wanted to go on a pilgrimage, then the place and the people to do it with is Select International Tours. They've been a great partner for us here over this past year and hopefully continuing into the future. But I just wanted to let you guys know that if you ever are thinking about a pilgrimage, you need to think about Select International. They are the leaders in it. They've been doing it for over 40 years, and they do some great work. So if you want to find out some more about them and to, look at all the pilgrimage places and dream a little bit, maybe even sign up for a trip, you can do so at fortecatholic.com/tours. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll. That is Father Anthony Sciarappa. You were recently telling me about a life change, or a life change that I don't agree with for sure, and then one that I have questions about. So,
okay, cool.
So share with the group what you're thinking.
Yeah. Well, children. So early on in my seminary career, like when I first got to seminary, I didn't have.
I love that I said career a couple times earlier, and then you just called your seminary career. That's hilarious.
It's the most analogous thing that I have to a career. It's basically seminary. Anywho, so I started, and at the time, I had like no devotion to the saints or Mary. Like I didn't hate them or anything. I'm like, okay, they're probably nice people and all, but what does that have to do with me? But a lot of the guys in the house really had a huge devotion to Mary. And I realized how much like the church is devoted to Mary because we do these hymns. And I didn't know there were feast days during the week. I thought like Mass was only on Sundays, but we're doing Mass every day. There are Marian days, all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, I want to figure this out. I read all these books.
I don't think people can see it in the normal video, but what I'm going to do right now in the video, hopefully I remember this, is I'm going to shift your video over a little bit because there is a large Mary statue looming over your shoulder. You can't point at it. That was very funny.
It's mirrored.
Very
it's mirrored.
Confused. But usually it gets cropped out because we just show we're both in 16:9, essentially like TV. Yeah. But when I edit it, I have to put it down here. So I'm gonna shift it. Don't worry about it. I just said I'll do it. But yeah, it's just very funny to have Mary like staring at you while you're talking about her. She's like, "You better not screw this up."
Exactly.
Anyway, please continue. I just couldn't get over that mental image.
Yeah. So I started getting really into this Marian devotion, started praying the rosary and everything, and learned about this thing that I think a lot of especially younger Catholics are getting into is it's called the total consecration to Mary, or true devotion to Mary. It's taught by this Saint Louis de Montfort, who's a crazy person, but one of the favorite saints of mine. And so basically, the short version of it is, when God wanted to come to earth and come to us, he did it in the perfect way. And that perfect way was through Mary. So if we want to go to God, if we want to go to Jesus, the perfect way to do that is through Mary. So you kind of have this particular devotion to Mary. Usually once a year, you do this 33 days of preparation for it. So you sign a piece of paper. It's this whole thing. And one of the little things that people get real excited about, it's only like one little paragraph in St. Louis' book, is this idea of wearing a little chain around your wrist, around your leg or something, to symbolize this kind of holy slavery to Mary. Like St. Paul talks about being a slave to Christ. The idea is you're a slave to Christ through Mary, you wear a little chain. And I had 2 chains, one on each wrist, that I wore without removing them every day for like 6 years, which, my goodness, made airports very awkward. Because they would always be confused by the chains.
Sir, are you okay? Are you being trafficked?
It's like, can you take these off? I'm like, if you have pliers, I can. And they're like, why? It's like, it's a religious thing. And then they would get real quiet, and then they would pat me down. And just to be honest, like, I don't get a lot of human contact.
A quiet pat down. Oof, it's scary.
Yeah, no, I don't get a lot of human contact. And the one place I did was at airports, and it was very weird. I didn't like it at all. So
I was really worried about you when you said the one place I did, and I'm glad you said airports.
yeah, just airport security. So anyway, but for the most part, the chains never bothered me, and just continue with my Marian devotion was a big part of my life for a long time. Got to major seminary in DC, and I was working at this hospital in Georgetown, and the supervisor there did not like my chains. He was a Jesuit priest. He did not like my chains. And the other religious people who were there, because they had a whole bunch of chaplains there, Methodist, Baptist, whatever, they always asked me questions. And they thought it was some sort of weird torture thing that I was doing to myself. Like, no, I wear these all the time. I sleep with them. I barely even notice them. It's just a part of, whatever. But one day, I got back from my rounds, and the chaplain, the priest there, was like, a lot of the patients that you visit said that your chains made them uncomfortable. And I'm going to have to ask you to remove
projection.
Them. Exactly. Because literally either they didn't notice it, or they asked a question and I told them about it. Like, oh, that's neat, whatever. No one ever was uncomfortable with that. So it's complete BS. And I was like, well, I never wanted one of my personal devotions to get in the way of my ministry. That was something that was, I thought, important, because my life is for other people. And so I took the chains off, and I was so ticked off. I was so angry. My God.
Last segment, I was like, I don't care about stepping on people's toes anymore. And you're like, I'm a servant of the Lord.
Yes. Exactly. But this was it ended up being kind of like a traumatizing thing for me. And my Marian devotion kind of faded away for a while. She's always there, still, fan of Mary and all that. But just recently. Yeah. And that guy will pay for what he did to me. Anyway.
In this life or the next? Because I'm interested if it's this one.
We'll find out, won't we? Anyway. I have a lot of Italian family members. I could get something taken care of if I wanted to. But anyway, more recently, I just felt kind of being drawn back to that Marian devotion. I'm like, wow, I haven't done this in years. And so I've been going through the true devotion, and it's interesting to just kind of go through it again with a different perspective. I'm more spiritually mature than I was before, and it's just been very good. Which has led me to think about something.
Wait. I have questions about the consecration, because I know the next thing. But I have questions about the consecration. I have always stayed away from it, and you listed 3 of my concerns about it. The first, and you just kind of glossed over them. They're like major concerns for me, and you're like, St. Louis de Montfort, he's crazy, but it's fine. I love the devotion. I'm just like, I don't know. I kind of think he's a little bit crazy, and I kind of think like he's incredibly intense, and I also think that, like, you sign a piece of paper to marry. Like, what does signing a piece of paper do? Second of all, the I know you weren't torturing yourself, but like you said all nonchalantly, it's like, oh yes, I'm a slave to Mary. I'm like, that's weird. All of this is weird. What?
Yeah.
Why? It's always weirded me out.
Yeah, no, it is weird. So you got to remember a few things about this devotion. One, that Saint Louis de Montfort is very French, and the language he
That
uses
explains everything. You can go on now. I'm just kidding.
Exactly, right. So a lot of the language he uses is off-putting for us.
You should be off-putting.
moderns. I am. People hate me. Anyway, so
Do you know where that joke is from?
no,
It's from Between Two Ferns, and the girl that plays Katniss Everdeen, Jennifer Lawrence. She tells the little fat guy, "You should be off-putting. Like he should stop eating pudding." It's very funny.
Off-putting.
He's like, "You're off-putting," and she's like, "You should be off-putting."
As a side note, you could totally do a Catholic version of it. I think you'd be the perfect interview for it.
I think it is the greatest art form ever created.
It would be great. I would love to do that. Anyway, put that in the memory break. We could totally do like hardcore that and just go at each other. I think it'd be funny. Okay, so there's some
Between
language
two
stuff
lilies.
there.
Okay, keep going.
It's a really good idea. The other thing about him is that he's battling Jansenism at the time. And this is kind of like Catholic Calvinism, where people would like never receive the Eucharist, do super severe penances. And so one of the things he's doing is trying to get people to trust Jesus more by having them trust Mary more. So that's part of his motivation for doing this. And so, going through it now with a little bit more education and a little more understanding of all this stuff, because he'll say things like you do all of your intentions, all of your prayer intentions, you give them to Mary. So she decides what to do with them. Okay. Which can freak people out. Like, can I pray for people? Like, can I just do that? I have to give them all to Mary. And you have to understand that even St. Louis de Montfort, he basically says that if you give everything to Mary and you want a favor for somebody, if anything, she's going to be more disposed to help those people out. So stuff like that, I just kind of chalk it up to the language and the kind of intensity of his time. And that doesn't bother me so much. Like, if I want to pray to Jesus, I can go to pray to Jesus. I know Mary's going to be there, with me, interceding for me. And the image I have is, sometimes like you're a little kid playing outside with your friend, and your friend's Jesus. You're playing outside, and mom's maybe doing the dishes or something, and she's watching through the window, just making sure everything's cool. Like, she's still always interceding, even if it's not directly to her. It's the wedding feast at Cana. The wedding couple had no idea that Mary's the one who initiated that. They just had the experience of Jesus performing this miracle.
I never thought about that. I never thought about
Right?
the POV from them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but here you're getting into like, maybe you're doing this on purpose, but you're getting into the argument of like, why pray to Mary? Here's my thing. I'm totally down to like asking Mary to pray for us. Like I have said before, I've struggled with the rosary, so I don't pray it often. I've tried. It's just not the thing for me. I think the consecration's insane. I've looked into it, and I think people that do it are insane. My compromise was like, Mary, I love you, and I'm totally down for you interceding for me, but I don't like your rosary. I'm sorry, and I think that your guy, Mr. Montfort, was a little touched to the head, right? So I'm going to see him in heaven. It's going to be super awkward. They're going to play this clip back to me. And then you're going to be on the other side like, it's okay, I did good. But then so essentially what I do is I pray the Angelus every day at noon. I've done that every year since I stopped praying the rosary. I was like, this is my compromise, Mary, are we good? And she didn't say anything. So I assumed we were fine. So, I'm totally, it's the super intensity of stuff. Like the other thing that I've been pretty against, do I say it? I'm not a huge fan of Exodus 90. I've made that public many times, and it's been awkward now because I see them all the time. But like that stuff that's so intense and kind of over the top, I think it's just like, to me, it's similar to like the Pharisee. We had it in Mass the other day when they were talking about like Paul of like, oh, do we make these new converts? Do we have to make them Jews, or do we make them, or are they fine being Gentiles who love Jesus, right? And essentially they're like, you just need to follow the basics, not all this extra stuff. So I'm like, I get that this is a choice, but like the extra super intense versions of stuff is always kind of weirded me out.
Yeah, and one of the things that's most difficult about this Marian devotion is the Marian devotion culture that surrounds it. And you see this all the time in Christianity, that someone gets really excited about something, whether it's some sort of retreat, or if it's Exodus 90, or if it's true devotion, or it's something, and it's genuinely beneficial for them. And so in their brains, they think that, okay, everyone has to do this thing. And to be honest, a lot of times I caution people against doing the total consecration because I know it's not for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that. And also, you have to have a proper understanding of what it is and what it isn't. And so, like, you praying the Angelus and asking Mary to intercede for you, like, that's a good, healthy, normal Marian devotion. One of my seminary professors, and was my spiritual director. And he goes, the most Marian thing you can do is read scripture. To like meditate on the word of God, to hold
I'm
it in
frat
your heart.
snapping without frat snapping because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I can just clap with one hand.
Okay. Anyway, like he's like, so like reading scripture, doing Lectio Divina, that's a Marian devotion. And I totally agree with that. So yeah, I think all those concerns are fine. If you don't want to do it, I don't want to pressure anyone to do it at all. And it's something that is just, I feel the Lord calling me to do. And it's fine. So yeah, I understand those concerns. And that's why it's not for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with that.
But we have already admitted that you're a crazy person. So you have another crazy idea that has to go with this.
Oh, yeah. So the one thing that was nice about having those chains, it was a constant reminder of, on my wrist about who I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do with my life. And I was like, I don't want to go through the whole thing of wearing chains again and taking them on and off and blah, blah, blah. It'd be way easier. Just get a tattoo. And my plan is to get a Marian tattoo on the inside of my forearm. Like a little one of those M's, maybe with the 12 stars, ad Jesum per Mariam, maybe in Latin, and just to have that.
Come again?
Yeah, it's Latin. To Jesus through Mary.
Okay, there you go.
It's kind of like the slogan.
You have to remember who you're talking to, and I'm not talking about the audience. I'm talking about me.
Yes, yeah. Ad Jesum per Mariam. It's to Jesus through Mary. And like I think because I've been thinking about getting a tattoo for a long time, but like no idea has ever been like compelled me enough. And like this is actually something that I'm kind of would be helpful for me spiritually as a reminder, and I think it'll work. And I'm that's where I'm leaning towards getting the tattoo.
Here's what I don't like about it.
Okay.
You understand that you're gonna get old, right?
Yeah.
Like a Marian tattoo is really cool for like somebody under 40. Yeah, that's 7 years away, man.
Yeah.
You're going to have something permanent that will be cool for maybe 7 years. And then you'll have to deal with it for the next, 1 to 40 as an old man. You know that like, you're going to get fat as you get older.
Yeah.
You're a parish priest. That's just what you guys do. I did it earlier, so nobody can say anything. You're a hairy man. Most like you're an Italian. Yes, you have hairy arms.
I really don't though.
No, okay,
really
that's one of my concerns for me. That isn't for you. I think making a permanent decision for something that you probably should have done when you were 18. Now making that decision at 33 seems like you're in a midlife crisis. To be honest, here's the only thing I do like about it. What? The only thing I like about it is that the thing that kept you away from this Marian devotion that you care about, right? It's one of my favorite things about being Catholic is that there are devotions that I really care about, devotions that you really care about, and a lot of them don't match up because there's 1,000 choices for devotional stuff.
Absolutely.
But one of my favorite things is that the reason you stayed away from it was because like of some pain from your past, right?
Yeah.
From airports and Jesuits. And the only thing that I like about the thought about you getting a tattoo is you're like, screw you guys, you can't make me take this off.
That's a little bit, yeah. There's a little bit of that. Okay, so a few of your concerns. One, if I was concerned about being cool, I would never have become a priest. Like, let's be real honest. Anything like that stuff does not bother me.
I don't know. I'm gonna throw your hipster haircut into the mix here. I think you do care a little bit. I don't think it drives you. It's not who you are, but I think it's there.
Okay, maybe a little bit. So the hipster haircut is simply because I wanted to see what my hair would look like long. Just because, why not? No one can tell me what to do. It's just
it's the same reason that you want the tattoo to say "screw you" to the Jesuits and the airport people. You got the hair to piss me off. Because I told you no, so you grew it longer. I'm seeing a theme here.
Maybe. And then I got like the undercut just because it makes it look a little bit more on purpose.
No,
like
no,
I've actually
it pisses me off more. That's 100% the reason you did it.
And like, the inside of your forearm, that's not the first thing to get flabby. And I'm not like, I would never do a Marian face for that reason, because that would be sad to have Mary kind of sag or anything.
Oh, it would look like a t-shirt that I got designed for a youth group. Stop moving your hand. What are you doing? You're picturing it being there, and it's not there. You look really stupid. Yeah. But again, I think that was out of the camera, so everybody's going to think I'm crazy, and I'm the only one that saw you look stupid. So, yeah, I got a Mary designed for me a while ago. Or was it? No, it was Mother Teresa. And the design came out and everybody thought it was really cool. And I'm like, that's a gorilla. Like it's 100% the face of a gorilla. So like there's, I think, it would get flabby at some point. Like I've seen a lot of people get army tattoos there and they get old and they're not. The reason I don't have tattoos is because my grandfather had a lot of military tattoos and his skin was gross by the time I was old enough to see him. And it's just kept me away from tattoos. Because
it's fine.
People get old, and I got fat real fast. So,
you know what? But I'm okay with being old and gross. If anything, I see that as a win. The older and grosser I get, the less people will be tempted, and that's great. That's great for everybody.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should shave your head if you really cared about that.
That's a good point. There are limits. So. I'm going to do it.
No, please don't. Please, God, no. I talked to your mom about the hair. I texted her about it. I might call her after this and be like, "Look, we need to do an intervention."
Do not text my mom about it. I
already said I'm not texting her. I'm calling her. This is more serious than the last thing I texted her about. The last thing I texted her about was your hair. Now I'm going to call her. And I didn't. I apologize. I did not make it in time to help you with the Eucharistic ministry. But I can. That took 45 minutes. You thought that felt long? Think about the rest of your life. We're gonna have an intervention. I'm not inviting Nick because I think, as much as I love Nick, I think he might be the worst person for an intervention ever. I think he'd be silly the whole time. Yes. But his wife can come.
Also, he doesn't mind tattoos. His wife has a bunch of them.
Well, see, my wife has a tattoo, and I love her tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
She got it when she was young and dumb. You're old and dumb, and you're going to be really old soon. So dumb.
This I've considered this. It does not bother me. This part does not bother me. But also calling my mom and ratting on me, that's a total low move, Taylor. That's not cool. That's not what bros do.
We just talked about it publicly for thousands of people. What's one more?
She probably listens to the podcast every once in a while too. So yeah. But my little brother's got a bunch of tattoos. Most of his are very silly. I would not get a silly
He's the least favorite of the three brothers, though. So
it depends. It depends on the day. You know how it works. Yeah. It depends on the day.
Favorite kids rotate.
Yeah.
I think you're often the least favorite. And I think I can see Nick being the least favorite too. So you're probably right. It probably does rotate.
Really, none of us are the favorite anymore because now there's a grandbaby.
Yeah.
Producer Indiana is the all-time favorite. We're all nothing compared to her, which is fair because she's perfect.
The favorite sibling with my siblings has ramped up the more and more my kids are around because we're all like, wait, remember when you cared about us?
No, just grandbabies.
So you don't do the consecration and don't get a tattoo. That's why
I'm gonna do both of those things. And now I will say I'm now more excited to do both of those things after this conversation.
I'm calling your mom.
I'm gonna get a face tattoo if you call my mom.
I'm calling your mom.
I'm gonna get another tattoo on my other arm just saying I love Taylor Schroll. And I'm gonna get a heart. Yeah.
I'd almost rather you do that because it's as dumb as the decision you're making.
That's a great decision. I love it.
All right. Well, agree to disagree. I'm right. I will be proven that over time. And I might see you soon. Me and your mom might show up to your rectory. Excuse me, sir. We have some things. Please sit down.
Oh, no.
I'll invite Mary. The statue could be involved in it. And
Mary can come.
I'll have it where her eyes are staring right at you.
Mm-hmm,
She's like, my son, I know you love me, but don't be an idiot. All right. Well, don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back. And we didn't really have a final segment planned, but you're going to laugh because I told Father Anthony, I was like, if we have time, we'll do one final segment. And I thought it was going to be completely random, but I just realized that there's a huge tie-in to the conversation that we just had. So do not go anywhere. I almost called your mom on the show and like put her. That would have been tremendous. Over the last couple of months, I've been telling you guys that I've needed some help when it comes to the work because Forte Catholic is growing. And I've had a young man that's been contracting with me for a while. And I appealed to you guys here on the show. I was like, guys, I want to be able to bring him on part-time, but I can't because I don't have the funds. And you guys came through. We were able to bring him on more than what he was doing. He was doing about 4 to 5 hours a week, and now he's doing about 10. But we're still not quite at the 20 hours per week that we would all like for him to be at. So what's the Bernie Sanders meme? I am once again asking you for your donations. That didn't sound like Bernie at all. That sounded more like the owner of Padme and Anakin from the first Star Wars movie, Episode 1. But I am once again asking for your help. You guys, a lot of you guys have already come through. Y'all have been super supportive of Forte Catholic this whole time, but also as we are growing. I'd like to be able to pay him more, and I want to be able to continue to pay him a just wage. So if you can help us out by donating to our nonprofit so that we can continue the work that we are doing, you can do so at fortecatholic.com/donate. A monthly donation is the best way to help us out, but also if you want to throw us some like one-time donations as well, those always help. You know, if you just got your tax refund or, you know, that sort of thing, or if, you know, you're just like, oh, you know, I like what the show's doing and I just want to send some money over, it would be hugely helpful. So thank you to everybody that has donated and who will donate because of this very strange appeal from either Taylor Schroll, Bernie Sanders, or an alien in Star Wars. Welcome back to Forte Catholic. I am Taylor Schroll, and that's a dumb person that's going to get a tattoo that's going to look really stupid in less than a year. So, one thing that stop showing me your arms. They're gross. You're proving my point. Especially with the lighting. They looked just pale as pale.
Yeah, they look really pale and weird.
You look like a White Walker from Game of Thrones.
I need some more sun.
Oh, man. Okay. So, one thing that I did with John, a Thin Blevins, you know him, yes?
Yes.
I was like, hey, I just led this retreat. And for all the talks that I give, we often do small groups after. So I write small group questions that have to do with the talk. And then we break into small groups, go talk about them. So I asked John, I was like, John, you've been doing this for forever, but like, let's flip it. And like, you know, we'll ask and answer the questions. Right.
Cool. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, it went really well with him. And I was like, well, I wasn't really planning on doing this with you today. But I was like, oh, I found these other small group questions that I wrote. I gave 2 talks. You remember when I was really sick, like a little over a month ago?
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it on the show where I tried to cancel a speaking engagement while I was in the depths of being as sick as it's the sickest I've been in a decade. And I was like, I can't come, I'm sick. And they're like, we don't care, come anyway. So
wow.
You didn't hear that. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to literally cough all over the place. And in a post-COVID world, like I didn't have COVID, but in a post-COVID world, coughing every 3 seconds while giving talk, not only is it distracting, it just looks bad for them. I was trying to protect them, but whatever. They wanted to still pay me, so they paid me, and I came. So whatever.
Okay.
So that day, I gave 2 talks that were like newer talks that like, you know, things that I've talked about, but not like a full proper talk. They had, you know, is their catechesis nights for their like sacramental prep. So they wanted it to be pretty specific things. So they're like, hey, here, not only is it the topic, like a lot of people bring me in, they're like, just talk about what you get at. We don't care.
Yeah.
Build the retreat, build the whatever. But sometimes they're like, hey, here's the topic we want. And that's, you know, really common. The least common thing is we're bringing in an outside speaker who we're bringing in because they're good at this. And here is their entire talk outline that we want you to follow. That's what this was. I was like, okay, whatever. Right.
Okay.
So I gave 2 talks that I don't usually use, but like I said, connected to a lot of things. The first one that I gave, it was a talk on Mary and the Saints, which is what we just talked about the whole last segment. So I'm not going to ask all of the questions, but you kind of answered some of them already. Like, what's the benefit of asking the saints to pray for us? Like you did that specifically with Mary. But the final thing, because I talked about Mary and the saints, we already know who not one of my favorite saints are, but who is your favorite saint and why? And the only stipulation for this is you've talked about a couple of them before, so you can't say Mary or Joseph or like Italians in general. If you want to pick an Italian, that's fine. But if we've all heard you talk a lot about Mary and Joseph, so that's the only stipulation for this because I just want new content.
In that case, it's Saint Ignatius of Loyola. So I talked about a Jesuit priest who I do not like, but Jesuit spirituality and other Jesuits I like a whole bunch. And I love, more than any other saint, his spirituality has helped me as a priest. I think his spirituality is really helpful for people who are not monks, who live in the world. So I'm technically what's called a secular priest. I have an Amazon account.
It's not a surprise.
Right? Yeah.
It's the haircut.
And also and also like the story of his conversion. I'll just tell one story. I'll make it short. But he just has this major conversion, but there's still a lot of the old Saint Ignatius, the old Ignatius in him. And the story that he's heading to this place called Manresa, where he's going to really continue his spiritual formation. And he's on a donkey, and a Muslim comes up because he's going through Spain. There's a lot of Muslims in Spain at the time. And they start talking, and they have a very cordial conversation. And they even have a kind of a nice conversation about Mary, because there is some reverence for Mary in the Islamic faith. But they got to the point where Mary was ever a virgin, and this Muslim person disagreed with him, and the argument got pretty heated. So they get to a fork in the road. The Muslim goes off to the left. Manresa is off to the right. So now you've got this prayer that Ignatius says, and it tells you like he's converted, but not perfectly yet. And he basically prays, he drops the reins of the donkey, and he says to Our Lady, if you want me to avenge your honor and slaughter this Muslim, then the donkey will go left. If not, the donkey will go right. So this is the prayer he makes. And there's a Protestant theologian whose name I forget, basically said, the entire history of the rest of Catholicism rested on an ass, quite literally. Like if he goes and murders someone, we might not have a counter-reformation, right? And the donkey goes right to Manresa. He doesn't kill anybody, and he becomes more and more spiritual. But just the intensity of that dude and his imperfections and how he later became a mystic, I'm a big fan of Ignatius.
Yeah. Which is funny because last week we talked about how dumb it is. Essentially recap. You haven't heard it yet. It hasn't come out yet. It would be impossible even if you were an avid listener of the show. Yeah. But we were talking about, it was a recent reading at Mass where they were like trying to replace Judas as the disciple, as the apostle. Yeah. And they're like, we'll just cast lots for it. They're just rolling dice for the future of the church. So I love that there's a connection the week later with the ass. So for me, one of them, he's actually come up recently too. I mentioned last week that Acts is my favorite book of the Bible. So I love this Easter time where we're going through Acts. And it brought up somebody the saint that was the theme of my 2019. He kept popping up, and he was somebody that had never really been a part of my life before. And it was Saint Barnabas. So Paul's companion, one of Paul's companions. And just how his name means like the encourager, and like that was his role. Like he was the person who encouraged the faithful. And it's one of those things that like I had to wrestle with it for a while because I'm incredibly sarcastic, which is like literally means like cutting the flesh, but it's like literally my love language. It's how I receive and show love. So I was like, how do I? So a lot of times like I'll be snapping and cutting with people, but like I still deeply care about them, and like when real stuff happens, like I'll be like no, like I'll be encouraging. But I was like how? But sometimes I'll say something and it'll offend somebody. So I wrestled for a whole year about this, and it's come up again recently, just because we're reading Acts again. So like this was like I searched like Forte Catholic and Barnabas, and like here it is, September 11th, 2019. It was the episode that came out. John and I talked about Barnabas. I think we talked about one other episode. I'm looking back at old things. 2018. Do you remember the free speech booths? That was a long time ago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember them being a thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So go back and listen to episode 111. This was literally over 4 years ago, 2018. Yeah. I was looking for Barnabas stuff and I found this and I was like, I just got angry all over again. The free speech truth that wasn't free speech. Anyway, so St. Barnabas has been on my mind this week. So, the next talk that I gave was about the Gospels. So it was just like give like an overview of the Gospels and what they are, essentially. Yeah. So, Father Anthony, what is the prime? Somebody comes to you as a new, they're not Christian. There's a Muslim. Let's just say you're riding a donkey outside of your fancy church, and a Muslim walks by.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's the deal with this Jesus guy? What is like the message of this gospel that you guys talk about? Go.
Yeah. You want me to explain the gospel or pick a gospel for him to read?
No. Explain what's the primary message of the gospel?
The primary message of the gospel is that there is one loving God who created the universe and everything in it, who lovingly gifted you into the world. And after we had sinned and betrayed that love, sent his only begotten Son to suffer, die, and resurrect so that we can be sons of the Father and one day join him in the resurrection.
And now this guy asks you for directions. Do you send him left or right?
It depends on where the donkey wants to go. We'll leave it up to the donkey. Yeah.
Very good. I think you did a very good answer. I'm impressed.
I would hope I could give know the gospel at least a little bit.
One of the hardest things to do in life is to give simple explanations to things that you know a lot about.
That's true.
It's very difficult to do. So like one of the things that the first thing that I do whenever I give this talk or a similar talk to this is usually it's like the evangelization talk, like how to, I have one talk. It's and the last priest that I gave this for, he loved it. He was like, that's the talk he came to. It was how to share the gospel without being a weirdo. That's the name of that's the name of the talk. And he came to it and he enjoyed it. But it's the first thing that we do with adults, with teenagers, and like adults struggle with it just as much as teenagers is, this whole elevator pitch thing. I give them, I pair them up and I give them each 60 seconds and I say, share the message of the gospel, evangelize the other person, go.
Yeah.
And they can't, most people can't, it's one of those things that like, a lot of people in church, we know things about it, but to make it succinct and then to actually say it is so difficult. So let's do that in a safe place, like amongst, when we're all amongst friends here, so that we can do it in the situations where we actually need to do it. So, okay. Now this is a question for you. Why are the Gospels special among the books of the Bible?
They're special among the books of the Bible because they reveal to us the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's the story of the new covenant. That's my short answer to that.
Sure. Final. You're doing great. I'm quizzing you. Final question. You're passing high school. You can get confirmed soon. That's what this was. Confirmation.
Cool.
Prep. You're doing great.
Don't ask me what the gifts are. I don't think I can name them all.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Then add the Catholic ones that are special from the Catechism of the Catholic Church that aren't in the Bible. Okay, so
I was like, there's no way this is a Catholic song. We don't do songs to memorize things.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts of the Apostles, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians and Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus and Philemon, Hebrews, James, 1st and 2nd Peter, 1st and 2nd 3rd John, June, and Revelation. We can do that one together because we share the New Testament. The Old Testament one gets wonky. We have to make addendums. And half of Judith and all of Maccabees 1 and 2. And
Wisdom is in there as well.
Exactly. Sirach or Sriracha, we're not sure. Okay, last question. This is just a question for you, and you're going to answer it, and that's going to be the end of our show. Again, stipulation: you can't say Christmas or Easter, and all stories connected to that. But with those stipulations taken off the table, what is your favorite gospel story and why?
Oh, the Annunciation, I think, and not just because I'm sticking with the Marian theme, but the way that God lovingly approaches Mary through the angel. Her response, the wonder and awe and even fear at first when Mary sees the angel, but then like has this just maturity and strength to respond, and then going off to the visitation, and just what it means that we know theologically, like this is the incarnation of the Lord. God becomes flesh in this moment. It's my favorite mystery from the rosaries. Probably maybe my favorite feast day as well. Not including Christmas and Easter. So Annunciation.
Mary didn't have a tattoo. She did not have a tattoo, and she's your hero. I'm Taylor Scholl. That's Father Anthony Sciarappa. I'll be back next week. He'll be back in a month. We'll be in person, I think, for our next one. You're coming here for a week. It's gonna be great. Yeah. It's gonna be so much fun. Bye. See ya.
Yeah, we're definitely going to record when I'm down there.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching and listening today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Father Anthony and I had a blast. It was on his day off, on the day that Destiny 2's new campaign came out. I can't believe he was here, but he was, because he felt bad for canceling on me last week. We hope that you guys really enjoyed today. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, leave a comment if you're on YouTube, leave a review if you're listening on podcast. Thank you guys so much. All the best. Love you. Bye.